Welcome and good afternoon. This is Commish Orr, and today we're going to take a very introductory look at season ticket baseball. I've only played a couple of games so far. I've been getting my project ready for the most part, but I have played a couple of games, and so I just want to give my initial impressions of the game, much like I did with History Maker Baseball before. And again, after only playing a few games, my thoughts and opinions will probably change a little bit, and I'll do a more detailed look at the game once I have some games under my belt, I guess, playing it. Um, the thing that I'll mention, kind of going into this, is that I'm mostly comparing it to games that I've played and not games that I haven't played. I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory, I guess, but I've played Stratomatic. That's what I kind of grew up on. I've played Payoff Pitch, which I started couple years ago, and most recently I've played History Maker Baseball. I am familiar with APBA, and actually played a little bit of Status Pro when I was young, so I'm familiar with some of the other games that are out there. But those are the ones I've played. Stratomatic, very little bit of Status Pro, Payoff Pitch, and History Maker Baseball. So that's kind of the background I'm coming from. The other thing I'll mention is that I do not, so the way I play, I don't really use the physical cards, so I didn't print anything out. I haven't ordered seasons or anything like that to know what the card quality is like. So I'm not going to really be judging it based on the card quality or anything like that. Though I'll mention the size of the cards because that's a little unique. So that's kind of the background or basis for my comments. And I guess let's start with the pros. Again, after only playing a few games, I talking about the cards. I like the card size. The cards are almost more square um, than rectangle. And a lot of games they're more rectangular, but these are more square. They're larger cards, also. Um, yeah, they're larger. I like that there's some coloring on them, even though it's minimal. I like a little bit of coloring on them, and I think the cards are kind of laid out pretty well in terms of being able to find things quickly. Um, in terms of the gameplay itself, I really appreciate that most plays you don't need to look up anything on a chart. So most of the plays you're going to read right on the card, and the card's going to tell you exactly what happens, including base runner advancement. So that's another huge thing. A lot of games, you may have to either look on a chart for base runner advancement, or it's dependent on some other factors. And for the most part, most plays in season ticket, you'll know what the runner advancement is just by looking at the symbols on the card. In other words, it'll say first base plus plus if it's a two base single, for example. Or it'll say first base plus if I believe if the runner on first goes to third, or the runner at second and third score, but the runner on first only goes to second. That's what it is. And other cases like that. For the most part, all of that is encapsulated in the card itself or in the result on the card, and you don't have to go to another chart to figure out the base running stuff. It's pretty easy to pick up. The basic game system, and I'm not going to talk about how to play, but the basic game system is you roll a 6-sided die and two 10-sided dice, and you get the two 10-sided dice act as percentage dice, if you will, and the 6-sided is the hundreds digit 1 through 6. And then 1 or 2, it's on the pitcher's card, 3 or 4 on the batter's card, 5, it's either a defense or rare play, and 6, it is on the stadium card. So that's kind of how it's broken down. So it's not a true 50-50 system because you do have the rare plays that occur and the stadium results that occur, or rare play and defense, I should say, that occur, and the stadium results that occur. In addition, even the 1 and 2, the 100s happen regardless of the handedness of the batter. For example, the 2 column is broken down into lefty righty splits. Much like on the batter's card, one of the columns is regardless of the handedness of the pitcher. The other column is lefty-righty splits. So that gives some more variety, I think, and interesting impact based on the splits, I think, overall. So I just really like the system and the way it's set up, and how easy it is to pick up. So it's very easy to pick up. You roll the dice, you can look right at the number on the card and know exactly what happens right away. Again, there are some edge cases where you have the option of taking the runner challenging the arm of the fielder and that kind of thing. So I appreciate that. The other thing I really like is that there is an auto strategy, a couple of pages of auto strategy, so that if you're like me and you're playing, or like many people, and you're playing solo, you don't have to worry about making the decisions, if you will. You can look at the auto strategy that will help you determine whether a runner is going to try to take a lead and that kind of thing based on their ratings and a die roll and that kind of thing. So I like that too. Many games don't include that, and so the player is left to kind of figure some of that stuff out on their own, use homebrew, that kind of thing. But that's included. That is included in the game, and I really enjoy that aspect. And that includes when runners challenge and that kind of thing. It's also a very detailed system. So there's a weather that you can. Some of these are optional rules, but you can have weather involved. It has an extensive injury charts, very detailed extensive injury charts. There are rules for playing players out of position, which again you don't really see too often in games. Not that it happens very frequently, but there's a good system in the rules that kind of allow you to play any player anywhere if you really had to. And it's done in a realistic way and not just everybody that's playing out of position is automatically the worst fielder ever. Defense and offense options are very extensive, probably the most extensive of any game that I played. And what I mean by that is, yes, on offense you can bunt, of course. You can hit and run. You can run and hit. And then on defense, you have the option, of course, playing the infield in, playing the corners in, guarding the lines against doubles, or guarding against doubles, guarding the lines, that kind of thing. Pitching around a batter, that's included in there. There's rules for that. It's just very extensive. So pretty much any decision that a manager makes in real life, you can make in the game, and there's actual rules for how to determine what happens. And of course, there's consequences as well. So if you're holding a runner on base, certain plays are going to be base hits instead of ground outs to the first baseman, for example. That's all covered as well. I know Stratomatic does that as well, but it was good to see that level of detail in the game as well. There's a stadium system. So the stadium determines, home runs in a lot of cases, and based on how many actually occurred in the stadium. And it also impacts other things, walks, strikeouts occasionally, that kind of thing as well. Likewise, like catchers have an umpire rating so that they can tweak strikeouts based on what their rating is. Everybody's rated for pass ball rating. The rating system is pretty extensive. So even though the most of that is on the player's card in terms of the results, every player also has like a power rating, which factors into deep drives that occur, contact rating, and that kind of thing. So you can get a kind of a basic sense for how good a player is in different areas without having to really analyze the card too much, if that makes sense. So I really like that. It's, as I said, overall, it's a very detailed, simple to play, but very detailed game that has extra options for you if you want to make it even more detailed. There's rules on playing through fatigue. So, playing injured and that kind of thing. If you want to have players play injured before they're fully 100%, you can do that. Just a very extensive list of options, I guess. The other thing I really liked was the pitcher fatigue system. It it's simple, but feels pretty realistic while staying simple. Um, Pitchers don't drop off a cliff when they get tired, but they gradually have it impact them, I guess. So you can really, as a manager, make a decision on whether a pitcher should get pulled or whether you can risk leaving them in, knowing that it's going to have some impact sometimes based on the roles. So I think the pitcher fatigue system is pretty good, and it's not a game where some games once the pitcher gets fatigued, you might as well bring them out because they're just going to get shelled automatically, and that's not quite the way it works. I don't think in real life, and it's not really the way it works in this system either. So I really like that. Overall, overall the game feels real. It feels realistic. Things happen on a realistic in a really realistic way. I did have to get over, like in terms of base runners advancement, that you don't adjust the arm rating or the running ratings and that kind of thing based on whether the throw is going from right field to third base or whatever it may be, because that's all baked into the system. As I said, most of the results have the base runner advancement built into it, so you don't have to look at charts and that kind of thing. The only time that happens is if you either choose or are forced to challenge. And that's the other thing I kind of like, is that there are certain options where you are forced to challenge the fielder's arm to advance. In real life again, or I shouldn't say in real life, but while playing most games, if it's obvious that the runner, has a 50-50 or less chance to advance, most managers aren't going to take the risk. Whereas we know that in real life, oftentimes, well, I won't say oftentimes, but many times it happens that base runners take chances that we as a viewer might wonder about, like, why did they do that? And so the fact that that's kind of baked into the game too is really interesting and makes it feel more real and realistic. So I really enjoy that. So let's talk about some cons. I only have a few cons actually. Um, and again, keep in mind the first few games are very clunky because I'm looking everything up, making sure I'm doing things correctly. I don't have things memorized, so I have to consult charts to figure out what some of the symbols mean sometimes. So it's a very slow process, and I know that'll get better. Um, One of the cons I think that I found so far is that the defense lookups. Now, every time you roll a 5, um, it's going to be either a rare play or a defense lookup based on the tens digit. Uh, I like that the tens digit tells you what position it's hit to. So if it's 5, 1 something, it's 1 is the pitcher, 2 is the catcher, 3 first base, 4 second base, and so on. I like that system, though, like shortstops and second basemen have more chances. So in this defense system, when you're doing defense checks, every position has an equal chance of a defense check. And so that, I don't know that I really like that aspect because again, and I know some of this is baked into the other results, but just talking from strictly the defense check point of view, all of the positions have an equal chance at a defense check when certain positions field more balls and would, in theory, have to make more defense checks because of that, if that makes sense. So the other piece of the defense check lookup is that every time it happens, you have to look at a player's card. So as I said, there's no on the positive side, there's no charts that you need to really consult much of. On the negative side, you have to look at the individual player fielder's card to know what the result is. Again, I know some of this is I can't say you're going to memorize it, but I know there's a formula and it's based on arm rating, the range, and those kinds of ratings. And so there's a system involved that's a standard system that you can rely on to figure out what the breakdown is on when it's an out, when it's a hit, when it's a double play, if it's an infielder, that kind of thing. But you still have to consult the player card to figure out the end result. And so that adds a little time, and it's going to happen 1/6 of the time. You're going to have a five come up and have to do that. So it happens a number of times throughout the game that you have to do that. Is it any worse than Stratomatic, where if there's an X chart that you have to look up, you have to stop and look up the X chart to figure out what happens? I don't know. But that's, again, it's not a huge con, but it's something that you have to keep in mind that slows the game down a little bit. I am going to take IED Jester's advice. He had a great video yesterday about making his own defense charts with all the players on the team on it so that he could quickly look it up without having to look at the card itself. And so I'm kind of going to implement that and have a couple of those defense charts for the starters so that I don't have to flip through the cards to find the one that I need to consult, if that makes sense. One other con, I guess, and keep in mind, I like Stratomatic. I enjoy playing it. It's enjoyable to play. Even though Season Ticket isn't a 50-50 game, a straight 50-50 game, there are some redirects that happen. It's still a sibling of a 50-50 game, if that makes sense. The pitcher, I still prefer the pitcher to kind of control the at-bat, to start off the at-bat. So that's why I like, let's say, Payoff Pitch, the way they handle it, where the pitcher is immediately, like, he's starting every at-bat. He's in control of every at-bat. It feels more like the pitcher-batter matchup to me than most games. Season Ticket Baseball does not have that. Again, the pitcher isn't really in control of any at-bats, if that makes sense. It's just based on the randomness of the die roll. So regardless of how good a pitcher was, if you always rolled on the batter's card, for example, again, very rare that would happen, but if it did happen that you rolled predominantly on a batter's card, the pitcher has less control over that game. And again, maybe that's realistic in the sense that sometimes pitchers don't have control over everything. But it's just one of the again, little nitpicks that I have against it. These are all minor, keep in mind. I really, really enjoy the game. These are very, very minor nitpicks. But if I'm going to list some cons, those would be some cons. And then something to keep in mind is that not every season is available. I believe we go back to 1919. So when I say not every season is available, most seasons are. And it's a much greater availability than almost every other game on the market. So, most games have some seasons available, but nowhere near every season. So I can't really hold that too much against Season Ticket Baseball. You're not going to have pre-1919 seasons. I know Clay's working on that, adding some of those seasons. But for right now, 1919 is as early as you get. So some players that played in the early 1900s are not going to be included. So you're just not going to be able to use them. And again, this is a minor nitpick because most games, I realize, Season Ticket has more availability than almost every other game on the market. So it's a very minor nitpick, but one I'll throw out there if you're looking specifically for a game to play early 1900s baseball. This isn't it yet, but I think it's coming soon. So again, that is I went on a little longer than I probably expected, but that's my brief overview after just playing a couple of games of Season Ticket Baseball. Hopefully that gives you some information. If you're thinking about different games to play, gives you a little bit more information on it. It at least gives you my background or my opinion on it. Not that my opinion means that much, but I'm very, very looking forward to continuing my project. My current project is the Best of the Decades 1930s. So Best of the Decades 1930s is my current project. I have the top 5 AL and NL teams in a tournament. Most of those are best of 5 series during the tournament. It's a double elimination tournament. And so I think I'm going to have a blast doing this. I've had a lot of fun the first couple of games, even though I'm still kind of, it's still a little clunky for me. And, I'm getting used to the system, but I'm having a blast already. Really looking forward to how the tournament shapes up. You can follow the action over on baseballmaelstrom.com. Let me just show you here. So if you go to baseballmaelstrom.com, I do a little write-up on each game that I play. I've only done one of the 2 write-ups so far. So I did the first game right up here. And that's where you can find it. If you click on the little tab here, best of the 30s tournament, you'll go to the actual tournament page itself, and you'll get the latest game stats. I only update the stats every 4 games or so I don't have anything uploaded yet, but you'll be able to find the stats on there. I use ball score and ball stat to do that. You'll see the tournament bracket, and then down below that you'll see older recaps. And if you want to view an enlarged bracket, you click on that, and the larger bracket pops up. So here's the bracket for you to see, and here are the teams, the AL and NL seeded teams. So this is what we're playing with, and then you can see that Washington won. I'm giving you a little preview here. Washington won the first game, and the Cincinnati Reds won the first game, and then the NL. I'm not doing it series by series. I thought about doing it that way, but I'm doing it day by day. So there were 2 games on September 1st, and I played those 2 games, one in each league. I'm playing this whole, I'm going to continue to do that day by day instead of series by series, just to kind of break it up so I'm not playing the same 2 teams 5 times in a row or whatever. So the other project I have going on, I'll mention briefly, is going to be Payoff Pitch, my Pops League Season 2. And so that's what you see. Most of this standings and everything is based on that. I haven't started playing that one yet, but it is also coming up. All right, with all that said, I hope that gave you some information. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching. Drop some comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, have a great evening.